Welcome to Marvelous Disney, the podcast that discusses the most recent doings at one of the more dynamic divisions of the Walt Disney Company, which is, of course, Marvel Entertainment. This is entertainment writer Jim Hill, and my co-host, the amazing Aaron Adams, and I are recording this week's episode on Wednesday, August 5th, 2022. And Aaron, I just want to ask if you are aware of what happened 60 years ago this week.
Yeah, but my grandfather does not like to talk about that anymore, so no questions, please.
This doesn't involve farm animals, does it?
I said no questions.
Okay, never mind. I think we're talking about a different scenario, actually.
Well, my grandmother doesn't like to talk about it either.
Okay, duly noted. No questions from this branch of the family tree. But 60 years ago this week, issue number 15 of Amazing Fantasy hit newsstands. Had a publication date of August 15th on it, but this thing was actually written in May, drawn and inked in June, printed in July, and then sent through Marvel's distribution channels in early August.
And they didn't hear results back from it until like December, and then they realized that it was a
exactly.
hit.
If you wanted to pick this up, by the way, it was a whole 12 cents. Just so you know, the minimum wage back in 1962 was $1.15. So even then, you're not spending big dough to get this. But what did your 12 cents get you? A story about timid teenager Peter Parker, who through a chance encounter with a radioactive arachnid then became Spider-Man. So issue number 15 of Amazing Fantasy was what introduced Spider-Man to the world. And in fact, literally on the cover, there are the phrase introducing Spider-Man. If you were smart enough to buy an issue and then really take good care of it, last year in September, a near mint copy of number 15 of Amazing Fantasy went for $3.6 million at auction.
Yeah. I've seen a couple in person. It's like seeing a unicorn. It takes your breath away. You go, you inhale real quick and clutch the pearls. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness, there it is. It's so beautiful.
I will have to check with my friend Greg White. He used to run comics and collectibles in downtown Kissimmee, and Greg has one of the absolute killer collections. I mean, DC, Marvel, the whole thing. And I'm sure he's at least seen it in his time, or one has moved through his store. But
while you're asking him that, just ask him if he's familiar with Ocean's 11 real quick. And totally unrelated. I just throw it in there very casually, and then thank you very much. Goodbye. Click.
There we go. Now we go on the Sinatra version of the Clooney version, because I think this...
It doesn't matter as long as we get the comic. As long as we get the goods, Jim, it doesn't matter.
Okay. And speaking of delivering the goods, it seems like, given that this is the 60th anniversary of the debut of Spider-Man, that somebody should have done something. I mean, No Way Home is coming back to theaters, but not in August. We have to wait till September 2nd for the More Fun Stuff version. That is actually the name this thing's going out into theaters under. The Spider-Man No Way Home, the More Fun Stuff version.
I'm fairly certain that Marvel has some comic book celebrations going on for the 60th, but media-wise beyond that, I don't think there was much of anything.
It almost makes me sad now, because Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was originally going to come out October 7th of this year. And of course, it's since been pushed back to June 2nd of next year. But if it had stuck with the original release date, that would have been late, but still a pretty cool way to honor the 60th. If you get a chance, folks, sometime this week, raise a glass to writer-editor Stan Lee and artist Steve Ditko, because these are the gentlemen who brought this character into the world that we are obviously still enjoying today. But now to get to the news, and as always, the news portion of Marvelous Disney is brought to you by Storybook Destinations, trusted travel partner of the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network. For a worry-free travel experience, please book online at StorybookDestinations.com. So, Aaron, last show we were sharing some info about what Drew Taylor had seen down at San Diego Comic-Con, and he was in the room in Hall H to see the Marvel Studio panel and got to see the footage that was shared there for Secret Invasion. But did you see the first look teaser trailer that dropped this week?
Oh, no. When did that happen?
Everything I've seen suggests that it was 5 days ago.
Oh my God, where have I been? How is this not made news? Like, I thought it should, like, maybe trend on Twitter or something if something, new pops out.
I think it was just a case of there has been a tsunami of news coming out of Comic-Con. There were so many stories that a lot of them just get swept under the tide. And this footage is different than what was supposedly shared in the Hall H in room. And Marvel Studios took this opportunity when they were walking this new first look out to now describe Secret Invasion as a crossover event. And in fact, here's the language that was put out. Secret Invasion is a newly announced series headed to Disney Plus that stars Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury and Ben Mendelsohn as the Skrull Talos, characters who we first met in Captain Marvel. This crossover event series showcases a faction of shape-shifting Skrulls who have been infiltrating Earth for years. So that, for me, sort of confirms that they're continuing, at least in part, the story that began with the original Captain Marvel movie, which hits theaters in March of 2019. And they seem to be sort of focusing now on a splinter cell of Skrulls that are bent on taking over the Earth. But I want to double back on that crossover event. There isn't a Marvel movie or a TV series that I can think of that doesn't feature appearances by characters from either other TV shows or other, so
Yeah.
haven't they all been crossover events at this point?
Yeah, pretty much. It's just right now they're saying, hey, we're going to throw in some more characters. We're just not going to name them yet, so we'll call it a crossover event. I guess maybe that's their way of getting out of that. I have no idea.
If what Marvel has been doing to date, and I think about Civil War, or for that matter, films like Endgame or Infinity War, if those aren't crossover events, what does Kevin Feige consider a crossover event?
He's going to bring in Batman and Superman.
But not Batgirl. And we'll get to her in a moment. Oh, speaking of female superheroes, I don't know if you saw She-Hulk. Disney, within the last day or so, has announced that they are shifting the release date of She-Hulk. The original release date was Wednesday, August 17th, and they have now decided that the show will drop on Thursday, August 18th, and then going forward, there will be a new episode. And remember, the first season of She-Hulk is 9 episodes. There will be a new episode every Thursday all the way through to Thursday, October 13th. And have you heard why they're doing this?
Yeah, the little thing called Star Wars and bad scheduling.
What Aaron is trying to explain here is that Star Wars Andor, that series was supposed to debut with 2 episodes on Wednesday, August 13th. What Disney has now decided to do is push back the launch of Star Wars Andor to Wednesday, September 21st. But instead of 2 episodes being available to Disney Plus subscribers, on that day there will be 3 episodes of Star Wars Andor. And what Aaron's kind of alluding to is bad scheduling is evidently the folks at Disney Plus decided that Andor was going to put She-Hulk in the shade. So it was like, because they were both going to be...
Well, no, they basically said, when we release a thing, it will come out on a Wednesday. Mm-hmm. And before it was Friday, right? And then they went, oh, wait, we release movies on Fridays. So we have to move that magical TV day, that streaming day, to a Wednesday. And that will put it away from the Friday. And there, voila, we're done forever. And that was just stupid. So what they should have done is when, hey, let's make Star Wars like Sunday because it's named after a sun. And there you go, star, sun, beautiful. And then Marvel will be Wednesday. And then somewhere in between, will be a Disney day or a Pixar day. Will be on Tuesday. And, by the way, for the Muppets, because we all want the Muppets to come back, instead of doing all these live-action reimaginings, why not just Muppetize everything? Do Beauty and the Beast, where everybody's a Muppet and Beast is a human, and at the end he transforms into a Muppet. I'll accept my check now, Disney. Thank you.
I was about to say that they should FedEx that check.
Yeah, overnight.
Wow. Wow, that's a great idea.
So,
Holy cow.
but there's something for every day. For if you're the Disney animation fan, then like Tuesday's your day. If you're the Star Wars fan, Sunday. If you're Marvel fan, Wednesday or whatever. But you've got them all spaced out, and then Friday you leave open for theater day. And that way you've got your calendar full and rich of content, but not crowded and stepping on each other's toes. You're giving Star Wars and Marvel some space with a cartoon in between as a palate cleanser. Everybody's happy.
Okay. I'm blanking the name of the subscription streaming service, the gentleman who was in charge, who basically sort of put out there that within 10 years, terrestrial television will be dead anyway. So, boy, that sounds like...
Remember the old Thursday night? Yeah, when you watched Cheers,
wow.
they had like a lineup. Exactly. That's exactly where I'm stealing this idea blatantly from. I'll make no bones about it. By the way, Disney, you owe me another check for this idea that I ripped off from blatant history, right? If you just look in the history book for the last forever since TV existed, you should have seen the formula. Why did you not rip it off sooner? Streaming is different. It's not that different.
Interesting. Getting back now to Star Wars Andor, what makes it interesting, we were talking about the last show about how She-Hulk was going to have 9 episodes. Andor, right out of the gate, got picked up for 2 seasons, and 2 hefty seasons, at 12 episodes each, so 24 right out of the gate. And interesting story from Mr. Taylor, again, supposedly picked this up at Comic-Con, that provided that Andor is the success that Disney seems to think it's going to be, there's a 5-year plan. 5 seasons of 12 episodes. That's 60 shows. And can you actually call something a limited series if there are 60 of them?
Well, yeah, you say limited to imply like exclusivity, like you're this won't last for long. It's the limited supply of cherry Coke. And you're like, oh my God, I got to get that now. It's limited. And then you've been drinking it for the last like 12 years and you're like, hey, wait a minute. Is this still limited? I used to work at a radio station that was the new 102 for about 5 years. It was new. Mm-hmm. At what point were we going to just be 102? They're like, no. New sounds good. And it rhymes, new 102. And it was just like, yeah, but we've been around for a minute. So we're not so new anymore. But yeah, it's just the wordplay. It makes it flashy.
Well, yeah, that's I for me again. If they go forward with this plan, 60 episodes, and I can't help but notice that the original Star Trek, which by the way only ran for 3 seasons.
Yeah, but how many episodes per season?
Yeah, again, that was 60s television. They ended up with a total of 79 episodes. Which it turned out, well, I don't need to tell you this. You're the broadcast professional. It's 65. That's the magic number,
for
right?
syndication. Yeah,
that's it exactly. That if you have 65 episodes, that means you can strip the show. And when I say strip the show, it's what? Run an episode every weeknight, Monday through Friday, for 13 weeks in a row without a single rerun. Mm-hmm. And that's supposedly at least the minimum number you need to succeed in syndication. And Star Trek had 79 and showing off the air in June of 69. And by the fall of 1970, it was being syndicated around the country. And that's how we ended up with the movies and, dear Lord, everything since. But again, given that we're talking about major media companies and what they're doing for streaming, I have to assume, Aaron, you've seen the news about Batgirl.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's been a lot of news recently over in the other camp.
As the story goes, Warner Brothers heard about what Disney was going to do with Marvel Studios in regard to Disney Plus. The whole notion that they were going to create these limited series. But what was going to be fascinating was that you could start a story in a theatrical release film, which would then continue in a limited series. But you could introduce characters in this limited series that could then go on to be seen in another theatrical released film. And Warner's was like, ooh, we want in on that. We've talked previously on the show about the Snyder Cut and how much money was spent to make Justice League. And that was what was kind of interesting about Batgirl. It was greenlit with a $70 million price tag. It was basically going to be a third of what the cost was to make your standard big budget DC comic movie. They were bringing back J.K. Simmons as Commissioner Gordon. Michael Keaton, for the first time since he did Batman Returns, the Tim Burton movie, was coming back to that role.
And he was also supposed to appear in Flash, but this was going to come out first.
That's it exactly. So, you were literally going to tee up that he was back in this world and then, get excited and go off and see The Flash, the Ezra Miller film. This was also going to be part of Brendan Fraser's comeback. He was supposedly playing a notable Batman villain in this thing. So it was budgeted for 70. It wound up costing 90 through no fault of the filmmakers. That's what happens when you have to institute COVID protocol. And speaking of the filmmakers, do you know who directed this?
No, I don't.
It's Adil El Arbari and Bial Fahala. These are the guys who just did Ms. Marvel.
Ah, okay.
So they totally lucked into getting these two guys who delivered one of the best reviewed limited series over at Disney Plus. And so, face it, if this project, and spoiler alert, it's not going forward anywhere, folks. It's not being released theatrically. It's not showing up on HBO Max. But if it had gone that route, obviously you would have walked these guys out of like, hey, these are the guys who just did Ms. Marvel. And oh my God, wait till you see what they did with Batgirl. But have you seen why it's not being released anywhere?
I believe the comment was that it did not fit in with what the new direction of the DC film universe was going to be.
Yeah, that was the first story that got out.
Oh, there's a new one. Okay, cool. What's the real story?
The second story, and in fact, this God, this is kind of heartbreaking, but tells you the world we now live in, with these giant conglomerates. I mean, face it, just recently, Discovery and Warner Brothers merged, and so we have a new gentleman in charge of that corporation, David Zaslav. And Mr. Zaslav was made aware by the bookkeeping department at Warner Brothers to the effect of, we're coming up on an interesting window in the middle of August. If we are going to write down any projects, and evidently Warner Brothers is facing a $3.2 billion debt. There was a lot of debt acquired with this acquisition. And it's like they're looking for things to write down to try to eliminate a certain amount of the debt. And it turns out if they opt to write off Batgirl, and also evidently there was a sequel in the works for Scoob, the Scooby-Doo film that was released theatrically a year or two back, animated feature. They could write down these films and for a very significant tax loss. But it meant that they could not be shown in theaters at all, or more to the point, they could not be repurposed for HBO Max. They had to go into the vault and never come out.
Yeah, but see, the way that they're really saving the money was if Batgirl was intended to be a movie that led into a TV series with high production values of a film that led to another film. Do you know what that sounds like to a bean counter? Ching, 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 ching. It's like a slot machine that never stops paying out, right? Just money, 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 money. That's all they hear. And they go, no, stop that now.
Yeah, but it's kind of heartbreaking for Adele and Bial. I mean, they had test screened Batgirl. They were in the middle of post-production, and they stepped away. They flew out of the country for a wedding. And all of this went down while they were out of the country. And they released a statement earlier today to the effect of, we are saddened and shocked by the news. We still can't believe it. As directors, it is critical that our work be shown to audiences. And while the film is far from finished, we wish that fans all over the world would have had the opportunity to see and embrace the final film themselves. We are now 3 days into stories about Warner Brothers' Discovery decision to do what they're doing to Batgirl. And I have to say, the only person and there's a lot of people talking in Hollywood, and the only person who's happy about this is Bob Chapek, because it's like, oh, good. Some other executive in Hollywood has done something stupid and they're in the spotlight. It's like, yay, I get a week off.
Right.
But given what just happened last week, where Gennady Tartakovsky's version of Popeye, or excuse me, the animatic for the entire film that Gennady wanted to make for Sony Pictures Animation back in 2013, 2014, it leaked online. And Sony's lawyers moved as quickly as possible to shut it down. But the film got handed from folks to folks to folks to folks. So if you want to see this movie in animatic form, it's out there. And Aaron, I can't help but think that given where this was in the production pipeline and given that...
Oh, it's the new Roger Corman Fantastic Four.
Yes, there we go.
Right? We're all going to be watching it. It's just a matter of time. And seriously, when you get news like that as a director, isn't that when you go, tell me where this man's desk is so I can go take a poop on it? Because how do you get that close to the finish line? You know, you're almost done. You've put all your blood, sweat, and tears into it. And their point is valid. They just want the work to be shown. They don't care if you love it or you hate it. They just want it to be up on the screen, and it was so close. And it was a financial decision that helped the company in a way that hurt other people. And I'm sure that the actors and actresses that were in it, you know, and the stunt people, and they all did their very finest that they could. And I'm sure they're all devastated that no one will ever get to witness all the work that they put into that. That's sad. It really is.
It is. But you brought up some interesting points about, again, this is Warner Brothers Discovery, but this is largely the folks from Discovery who were kind of driving the bus here.
Sure.
Can you talk about the sorts of things Discovery made and the attitude they kind of carried in the door with Warner's?
Yeah, well, Discovery, you know, they're really good at dropping a person in the woods with a camera and no script and no lighting and no nothing, and they go come back with some footage and voila, content. There's a show, I don't know if it's a Discovery made show, but there's one, it's airing on Netflix called Alone, where quite literally they drop 10 individuals in the woods separate from one another, so they are truly all by themselves, and they're their own camera operator. You know how much that costs? A helicopter ride and a GoPro. That's your budget, because there's no lighting, there's no script, there's no actors. You're not paying for anything. And at the end, you give them $500,000 and they think that they've won the world and it changes their lives. But the amount of money that you make off the advertising is millions. And they really don't care about the content. It's like, as long as we get eyeballs, then that means that we get to sell a commercial. If we sell a commercial, we've made the money and I don't care after that. And I do know that there are sales managers who do not care about the product that they're selling. They just care about the sale. And they're like, as long as I fill the hole with a commercial, my job is done. And it doesn't even matter. And I was saying earlier that, you know, I worked on a female-driven station that was a pop station. And we had a sales guy that loved to sell a Harley commercial on it because he could. And it was a lot of money. And it's like, yeah, great for the company, but a lot of chicks aren't really that. I mean, there are some girls that do love a Harley Davidson motorcycle, but the number is a bit slimmer than the male side. And the rock station that we had right next door would have been great for that. Why not give it to them? And it was because, well, I'm getting paid to sell this station at this time. And it's like, yeah, well, you make us look stupid. And you make our sister station miss out on an opportunity. So there are some people that just want to make a sale, want to plug a hole with the commercial, don't care about the content. In this guy's eyes, the way that he sees making money is, like I said with Batgirl, movies are expensive. Following that up immediately with a 15-episode series that leads to another movie, that's just a never-ending slush fund for people to go do. No, just drop a person in the woods with a camera, and I can make the same amount of money and it won't cost me but, you know, a GoPro. And so, you know, I'm spending $10 and making $1 million. You're spending $1 million and making $2 million. At the end of the day, I actually came out ahead because I didn't have to spend the $1 million to make the extra $1 million. So it's very, very shrewd, and people are going to hate this when it comes to Warner Brothers because it takes money to make a superhero show. You can't cheap out on it. And if you do and you cut all those corners and you make it look bad, your fans are going to turn their back on you so fast. and you're not going to make any money because no one's watching it, and you'll have ruined your property, and it will have taint, and it's going to take a lot of work to get that taint off, right? And that's why Marvel, I think, works so hard to make sure that their stuff is at least serviceable to their fans. It doesn't always have to be perfect, but it can't suck.
Yeah, I know. It just, I have to wonder at this point. Walter Hamada, the president of DC Comics, he re-upped with I think it was a new 5-year deal with Warner's in June of last year, and you gotta wonder if something like this happens on a project that, again, was supposed to this was going to be DC's answer to, the Marvel, let's go theatrical, let's go limited series, let's go theatrical again. What do you do in a situation like this?
I'll tell you exactly what Walter's doing right now. Walter's going down the animation department. He's going, guys, I want you to draw me a gray goose. Honk. I'll be at the bar, boys.
Okay. On that note, folks, go grab yourself an adult beverage, and after this commercial break, we'll be back with, again, I know Aaron will love this story because it's about a heroic editor.
Every story you love, every invention that moves you, every idea you wished was yours, all began as nothing. Just a blank page with a blinking cursor, asking a simple question. What do you see? Great ideas start on Mac. Find out more on apple.com/Mac.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Big news. Sephora is now on Uber Eats. So if you find yourself facing a beauty emergency, like needing a last-minute gift, or you're just out of your favorite mascara, again, don't panic. We got you. Order now and get $10 off on Sephora orders of $50 or more on the Uber Eats app. Order now. Offer ends October 30th. One order per customer. Additional terms apply. See app for availability. Delivery fees may apply.
A couple of things we want to share here. I Am Groot debuts on Disney Plus Wednesday, August 10th.
Are you sure about that? What else is coming out on that day? Is there a Star Wars thing that they forgot about? Are they going to move Groot to Thursday?
Oh, and it's not good for something.
Right now, right now we'll say it's tentatively scheduled for Wednesday. Go
there
ahead.
we go. There we go. But this is a film accurate Groot. This is how we've seen him in the James Gunn films, and we're going to see him at various points. In fact, Drew was talking about there's at least one of these shorts that's Groot in the pot from the end of the original Guardians movie, right. And him having an adventure in that form.
I want to make a joke, Jim, but I don't know if it's appropriate.
Okay, good. So let's we're rolling the dice here, folks. Here we go.
All right, Groot is an adolescent tree. Mm-hmm. Do you think they'll show his nuts?
Good night, everybody. Tip your waitresses. Okay. Would that qualify as an Easter egg? Or Easter eggs? Okay.
Easter eggs, yeah, I got to count as.
There we go.
Yeah. All right,
okay.
Anyway.
Speaking of Easter eggs, James Gunn was talking about Adam Warlock down at San Diego. And we knew we were headed toward the character. Speaking of an Easter egg, if you're watching the original Guardians and as they're touring the Collector's Collection, you can actually see Adam Warlock's cocoon among the Tivan collection. On the other hand, they really did plan on introducing Adam Warlock in Volume 2, but as James described it, they just ran out of time. The fact that they were able to sort of shove the scene in the end credits, it's like, okay, he's coming. It's like, I'm sorry, we just ran out of time. There's too much plot, too much story.
I mean, your villain is a whole freaking planet. Do you need another bad guy when you've got a whole planet to fight?
I get that.
Yeah,
I
it's
do.
okay to shelve them. I think that was the smart move there.
Okay. By the way, we have a couple of other, Marvel-related things in the pipeline. One stayed over. They are shooting Madam Web, and the very first photos of Madam Web, she's got evidently a 1.5 foot tall beehive hairdo.
Yeah.
Is that from the character,
Is it gray? Is she look old and whatnot? Because like she used to be hung up in a web. And obviously that's how she got the name Madam Web. But yeah, she also had the huge beehive hairdo, and she wasn't mobile. She couldn't get about. Peter had to come to her and ask her for advice. It was kind of like
Okay.
when the Fraggles went to the Great Trash Heap. Mm-hmm. Like that.
Okay.
Spidey would go to the Great Trash Heap and say, "Oh, Oracle, please tell me what do I do?" And she'd say, "Go fight the bad guy." And he'd go, "Okay." That was about
Wow.
it. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I don't have no idea what they're going to do with this movie, right? I mean, there's so much that's up, and I mean, the thing is, they've got very wonderful actresses all attached to it, and yeah, a lot of wonderful people working on it, and I'm sure that they're going to do their very best to it. I just have no idea what the plan is from Sony's point of view on what people want to see out of this.
There are many people who share that concern. A couple other things worth noting. Ryan Reynolds evidently shared video. He has begun training for Deadpool 3, so it can fit in the outfit. And more intriguing is that Oscar Isaac shared a video today where he seems to tease that we are, in fact, going to get a season 2 of Moon Knight.
Oh,
which,
thank goodness.
Yeah, I am very, very happy with that piece of news, because I still love Ms. Marvel, but I'm still kind of sore about the fact that Moon Knight didn't get as many Primetime Emmy nominations as I believe that series genuinely deserves. So maybe that can be corrected with season 2. And since we're reminding you folks of things on the calendar, that sort of thing, the Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness Blu-ray finally went on sale last week. In fact, it hit store shelves on July 26th. I have a copy of it here at the house, which I have yet to pop into the DVR, but we'll do that shortly.
Is there more madness?
Well, that was the thing. I was kind of hoping.
I mean, it should say on the cover, "Now with more madness." Isn't that the old advertising gimmick?
Okay, here,
right.
you stall for a second. Hang on.
Oh, that he's actually got it.
I'm walking over to the shelf. I am
Oh, he's got
grabbing
it.
the Blu-ray.
Yep, bringing it back.
There we go.
Okay.
Actual audio sound of it hitting the thing.
Yep.
Let's see what it says.
Packed with 95% more madness.
We have deleted scenes and audio commentary. So, okay, that was actually why I bought it. I wanted to see if we got the original opening for the film. Remember
Right,
we were talking about the scene where Carl Mordo goes to the Scarlet Witch to try to recruit her help
Right.
to take down Stephen Strange, and then she's already under the hold of the Darkhold at that point,
Right.
and she kills Carl, but evidently
That gave up the gag too quick.
no, that's it exactly. That you knew from the get-go that Wanda was now evil, and so they felt it's a great scene. It just that's not the way we want to start this movie. And I love editing related stories. I because again, it is the least understood aspect, I think, of filmmaking. There's a wonderful book called "When the Shooting Stops, the Cutting Begins."
Sounds like a Robert Rodriguez thing.
Well, no, it's first name Ralph. I'm sorry, I'm blanking the last name, but this is the gentleman who edited the original Mel Brooks producers as well as Annie Hall, and he talked about how when you're an editor, you work side by side with a filmmaker, and you're sitting there in front of the moviola, and you're making choices about how scenes come together. And he said what was fascinating is these were two guys who came up through television and then the late 50s, early 60s, and then became filmmakers in the late 60s going into the 70s. And they could not have been more different. I mean, Mel was just insecure, constantly second-guessing, and they'd fight over every cut. But in the end, the producers gets released, and it is this hit film. And Mel, one of the test screenings where he finally goes over, rushes up to him and, shakes his hand. And, thank you for making, my film good. And then goes off. Whereas he talked about Woody Allen. What's so great about Woody Allen is Woody was willing to try anything. He said you'd sit in the booth and they found Annie Hall through, that they had shot, hundreds of hours of film. And, that
Found
Academy
it in the edit
Award
process.
No, that's it exactly.
That's what lost the guys on Solo their job. Was they intended on finding it in the edit, and tone was all over the place, and Kathleen Kennedy wasn't down with that. I mean, really, that was like the big story, and they're the guys that did, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, right? They've had lots of success, but they also, have their own way of finding their own path.
It's interesting you say that, because there's that famous adage in entertainment, especially on the writing, the shooting, and then the editing, is you have to be willing to kill your darlings.
Yeah.
But we shot all day, and we'll look at the wonderful sunset, and and it's like, yeah, but it doesn't move the story forward, and you have to be willing to do that. And also, as a filmmaker, you have to be smart enough to listen to your editor. In fact, that brings me to today's story. That in fact, Vanity Fair just ran this wonderful article with the Russo brothers, where they were talking about working on Endgame and Infinity War, which, remember, was one epic, film shoot. 5 years ago this week is when they started production on Infinity War, or what eventually became Infinity War and Endgame. So they do 1 6-month long shoot, and they get as much as they can, and then they go off and do the first edit. They still have to get Infinity War in theaters in April of 2018. They talked about how weird it was on the set, Aaron, where one day you'd be shooting, they'd be in a location and they'd be shooting scenes for Infinity War. And then the next day they'd come back and it's like, okay, we're shooting scenes now for Endgame, so this is the outfit you're wearing. And it's like, where are we in the story? You've just traveled through time. And it was evidently so difficult for the actors to sort of like understand where they were. But it's like, okay, I trust you. This is what we're doing.
Right. Just tell me my line, which direction to look in, and have my cocktail ready at the end of the day.
There we go. So, all right. Infinity War heads out into theaters in April of 2018. They continue working on Endgame and realize, okay, we need some extra stuff. So they go back in front of the cameras in September of 2018, 5 months after the Infinity War is when it was debuted in theaters, and they shoot till the end of October, just stuff they need to do for Endgame. So they are now sitting in the suite. It's Jeff Ford, who had edited a number of the MCU projects up until that point, and they're sitting there with the Russo brothers, and they finally get to that point in the movie where it's the battle there at the Avengers compound, and get to the moment where it's Thanos doing the "I am inevitable." And Jeff turns to the Russos after they shows him this footage. He literally pauses the footage and says, "And I am Iron Man." And the way the Russos describe it is that at that moment it was like we had been struck by lightning. It's like, oh my God, that's it. That's what this scene needed. And so they get Robert Downey Jr. on the phone. But you have to understand that Robert thought, first they did their 6-month-long shoot, and he got all teary because he's saying goodbye to Iron Man, and this is early 2018, and no, we need you back here in September, and we need to shoot through October. And it's like, okay. But now I've officially said goodbye to Iron Man, and, I'm still teary. And now it's January of 2019, 3 months before Endgame is in theaters. And it's like, you have to come back. We came up with this great line. You have to say this line. And it's like, I've already said goodbye twice. And it's like, we'll need you for an afternoon. But the interesting thing is Robert Downey Jr. to this day misses playing Iron Man. And that's largely because evidently it was both the highest paying job he'd ever had, and it was the easiest gig he ever had. Because evidently once the faceplate dropped, Robert was off the set. That was all CG or a stunt guy. And so Robert would spend most of his time in an ADR suite, sort of recording lines that, okay, this is what the CG character needs to say here, or this is what needs to be said by the stunt guy. And if it wasn't that, it was those crazy close-ups that they did inside the mask. Mm-hmm. Camera really close to my face, and I'm reacting to visual display, visual display on your left, visual display on your right, and we're done.
It's like, Robert, you have a hoodie? Yeah, just flip that up over your head and grab your iPhone and tape it to your nose. All right, we're good.
Yeah. One of my favorite moments, and it feels like a bookend. It feels like, from the end of the very first Iron Man film in 2008 to, the moment we're all in theaters in April of 2019. 11 years to get, that movie ends with, I'm Iron Man, mm-hmm. and I am Iron Man. And that wasn't written. That wasn't a choice the filmmakers made on the set. It was a guy sitting in front of the editing machine who just turned and talked to the directors at that moment and suggested that line.
No, it's also a testament to directors who have the mentality that the best idea wins.
Yes. That brings us back to the Woody Allen story about Annie Hall. The whole notion of, this is what I think this film is. And it's like, oh my God, that's a great movie. Thank you for finding it. And, the fact that it can be that sort of collaboration, just, kind of rare. So we've hopefully talked about enough Marvel stuff today, and Aaron and I will keep tabs on the Batgirl situation. And I just have this uneasy feeling that this is Popeye 2. I don't know when and I don't know how, but I get the sense that movie's going to bubble up somewhere.
And probably really soon, because someone's angry and they've got a copy of it. And, let your emotions take control, young Luke. Follow the dark path to releasing that on the web.
And am I a bad person for saying I want this to happen because I want to see J.K. Simmons as Commissioner Gordon again?
No, I want to hear the fans, screaming in the streets and throttling that ivory tower that I can't remember the president of Discovery is at, where
David Zaslav.
Yeah, where he doesn't want to do budgets, he doesn't want to do things that take thought or planning or that are entertaining. And, he should get an earful. So if first the fans are going to cry for it, they're going to scream bloody murder until they get it, and then it's going to get leaked, and then they're going to watch it, and they're going to say, it was glorious, how could you deprive us of such beauty? And then they're going to scream even more, and he's going to say, okay, fine, enough. Here's your DC toys, you spoiled little brats, and throw a pile of money on the ground and walk away in a huff. I hope that's how it plays out.
Did you see the story that Rolling Stone did a week to 10 days ago
about the Snyderverse manipulation of the bots?
Yeah,
I did.
I wonder, and the very thing you're talking about, the fanboys rising up and insisting they get to see this. Mm-hmm. I wonder now that story's out there, and what they say it was 5 to 15% of the folks that were out there weren't necessarily actual folks.
Right. Well, the thing is that after that story comes out, whether it be true or whether it be some errors in there, I don't know. I'm not here to judge that at the moment. But either case, true or false, no matter what, when people are crying for their Batgirl, and there's an online push for that, Warner Brothers and Discovery are going to be scrutinizing every single tweet to try and get an accurate real count and figure out what's bot and what's real. Because if they invested so much money in Zack Snyder's completing his version of that movie, I don't think they're going to be too eager to go down that same road over and over and over again. So, I think this might be the one where they just go, you know what? We'll remove Warner Brothers from Twitter and be done with it. You can't even tweet at us. Nah. We'll just close our doors, close our windows, and go.
So, yes, move into the water tower.
Yeah, exactly.
Yakko, wacko, and done.
Yeah.
So,
hello,
okay.
nurse.
There we go. All right. Well, folks, that's going to do it for this week's Marvelous Disney. Aaron, can you tell folks where they can find you on social media?
Absolutely. Go over to the Twitters and find me at Azaprod, Azaprod, and you'll find me pondering the mysteries of the universe. A little fact for you, Jim. When the big old asteroid killed off the dinosaurs, statistically speaking, that is the most birds killed with one stone. I know you like to do, 2 birds, 1 stone. That's fancy and all, but that asteroid right there is the champ with the old ratio holder there.
Cannot wait to share that with Nancy. Okay, and speaking of Nancy, she wants me to remind you, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram as Jim Hill Media, and over on Facebook as Jim Hill Media News. We also have some other podcasts here at the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network. We have, of course, The Mothership, Disney Dish that I do with Len Testa. We've talked previously on today's show about fine-tuning, animation news, which I do with Drew Taylor. And we also have brought back Looking at Lucasfilm with Brian Gunn. And I would imagine he and I will also be talking about let's not talk it bad schedule. All right.
It's bad scheduling.
It's bad scheduling.
How can you not just sit there and was nobody from Star Wars talking to somebody over at Marvel where they fighting and they go, hey, what do you got going on over there? Nothing. When's it coming out? That's not. Just shut up. Look away. Don't look at my homework. Well, we got a show coming out. What, you want to know when it's coming out? No, I don't. Let it be a surprise. Okay, fine, it'll be a surprise. And then it comes Wednesday, and they're like, hey, why didn't you tell me? And they're like, shut up. You didn't want to know.
I love that you have Kathleen Kennedy and Kevin Feige in the 4th grade,
Yeah.
seated across from one another.
Afraid not. Afraid so.
Oh, God. All right. Well, folks, if you could also do Aaron and I a favor, if you could head over to Apple Podcasts and rate and recommend Marvelous Disney, that would be very helpful. More to the point, if you really, really, really like what you heard here tonight, if you want to subscribe, go over to Bandcamp, that would be helpful. And I think that's going to do it for this week's show. So thanks for listening, and Mr. Adams and I will be back next week.